Welcome to the KP Podcast, where we talk about the business of real estate. A podcast about leveraging opportunities, growing your business, and experiencing financial freedom. Here are your hosts, Keith Anderson and Peter Cambucos.
Welcome to the KP Podcast, guys. It's your host, Keith Anderson. Again, I am without my lesser counterpart, Peter Cambucos. This is always a good check to see if he's listening or not. But good news is we have another awesome guest to be able to share with you guys. We have one of my good friends, Lance, with Navi Title ETA and with our partners over at Navi. Excited to have you, man.
Appreciate you, man. I'm glad to be here.
So those of you guys that don't know, he's the give me your official role. Like what is actually on paper? Like you're a jack of all trades guy. Like you could literally, I could probably give you 12 different title descriptions.
I feel like I have 12 jobs, right?
Yeah.
So my actual title is VP of Development for Navi Title.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, from team coach to mentor to just overall industry leader to the know-how and know all the ins and outs of everything going on.
I try. I think I've had like 4 careers in real estate that anybody would be happy with, and I still don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up, but eventually I'll figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, 30, 35 right now.
Something,
right? So
yeah, just short of that. Just, the gray beard makes me look a little older, but I appreciate you.
So yeah, just thinking about today, and so excited about our meeting today, and like literally just decided to golf 18 holes at 6 a.m. and 112 degrees before it even turns 10 o'clock. That's always a solid idea. And so it's the best time to do the thinking, I swear.
So this conversation's on time management. That's where.
Yeah, I got to get in, get out, get my round in.
Let's play.
Yeah,
done.
It's speed to lead right out there, So, no, but for those of you guys that don't, or for those of our viewers that don't know you, tell me a little bit about your history, right? Like,
Man.
I know you said 4 different careers in real estate.
Yeah.
Right? Dive into that with me. Like,
All
how
right.
did you get into the real estate industry to begin with?
I actually started Arizona's first consignment sports memorabilia business.
Wow.
So I had a couple locations. The planes hit the building and everybody panicked, and I actually had someone buy my business about 3 weeks before that.
Really?
So I had some money in the bank. I decided to travel around the country, see old friends. Sitting in the San Francisco airport, my aunt who lived in San Francisco said, you know what, why don't you get into real estate? But don't get into sales because the planes hit the building and all the money's underneath the mattresses. Yeah. But I have a friend who's an appraiser and they get paid no matter what.
Yeah.
Cool. So within a week or 2, I was taking real estate appraisal classes, trained for a couple years, was an appraiser. In 2009, got my license.
Okay.
2012, I got my broker's license so I could be an instructor for the state of Arizona. I was partners with a really small little boutique brokerage. 2013 comes along. I decide I'm going to go teach a lot for the state. So I taught new licensee courses. I taught CE courses. I decided to become a coach for Tom Ferry International in 2013. That would be the really like second career that I decided to do, was be a coach. And then in 2014, this whole team concept came around.
Yeah, that's about when it was really taking off.
Really started to kind of pick up. So we had this little boutique brokerage with 2 other agents, myself and my partner. Really, it was his. I was just kind of helping in the way. But we decided, let's go try this team thing. So we moved to Realty One Group. And at that point, had a top 5 team with them. I had 5 agents. In 2014, we were crushing it. All brand new agents out of real estate school. I just happened to hit really, really well on all 5 of them.
Yeah.
We were doing great. I was coaching for Ferry in 2017. The market changes, and now the iBuyers are in place.
Yeah.
Or what if we have another bubble, or those kind of things. And I thought, for me to grow and to get to where I wanted to be, I probably needed to find a partner that was doing things better than me in certain lanes.
Yeah.
So my partner and I literally knocked on the door of, at that time, like a top 5 team in the state. Now I don't know if they're number 1 or number 2, but they're a mega team with about 225 agents. And went over to them and kind of helped them get things launched. I was set to be the leader of the west side of Phoenix, and then along comes Zillow.
Yeah.
And Zillow decides that they are going to start buying homes.
They're rocking the old mix.
They're going to start buying homes, and within 3 weeks, I was under an NDA, and I built Zillow's valuation platform for comping homes.
Wow.
So the appraiser comes in, the coaching comes in, all that. And when I say
That all
careers,
swings in, yeah.
there's another careers. Is our team really launched Zillow Offers nationwide, and we also launched Zillow Flex nationwide, and all the teams that were interested would come to us, and we kind of coach them. I did that for about a year, and then I moved over to run the West Valley for this team and took it from 13 agents to, when I left, about 75 agents.
Yeah. And then you're no longer there.
Then Navi shows up. Navi called. The owner of Navi called and said, hey, we have a unique position. We're starting a new title company, and you'll be the only one in Arizona doing it. And in essence, it allowed me to get back to coaching and doing what you and I do frequently is talk. And hey, man, I'm the cheapest consultant you can get. If you use our company, I'm free.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad gig, right?
No,
so I get to do that. So I've done coaching. I've done launching companies. I have done growth. I've done appraising. And now I get to be a consultant, really, is what I do.
So it's funny, like one of the things that jumped out at me was your friend back in, so it would have been 2001, 2002 era, right? When you jumped into appraising side of things after the towers. And they said, don't get into real estate.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not going to work out. But technically,
Keith,
that stretch of 5 years was arguably one of the craziest
I
real
wouldn't
estate
be here.
stretches.
I wouldn't be here right now.
You know what I'm saying?
I'd be retired.
Right?
So I've never been good at timing. So in 2001,
I'm thinking of both of these timings, right? So hold on, 2001 to 2005 would have been one of the strongest real estate stretches.
Yeah.
Granted, the crash came, so to each their own. But that you didn't get in until after the crash had already happened in 2009.
And in 2009, there was nothing to sell.
There was nothing. So that was actually the worst time to get in.
Bad time across the board.
Right, yeah.
2002, I get into really going full out.
You go appraisal, which is like no income in it, hardly at all.
The blessing I had, in all fairness, was the guy I went to work with, who's still a really good friend of mine. He had all the major accounts with the new builders in the Southeast Valley. So I was
loaded.
I was doing, myself and an assistant I had, I was billing out $300,000 a year. So I was making good money.
Yeah.
It wasn't a real estate
sales
agent's
income would have been.
But there was so much. I mean, I did at least half of what's the Southeast Valley. So whether it's Power Ranch, Seville, Johnson Ranch, Santan Heights, I was the appraiser in those trailers at the time.
It's crazy to think about that, but at that time, basically the entire southeast of Gilbert was not even in existence.
Was dirt.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And now you think about it, it's like I live in Seville.
Yeah.
And like that subdivision kind of seems older to me, right? And it's like
there were 3 homes when I started appraising for Shea.
2 decades ago.
Yeah, when I started appraising for
and
Shea.
You're 34. Dang, you've been really aging well.
I've been humping hard, man. My dad put me to work early, bro. Yeah, and then 2009.
Appraising.
In 2009, there was nothing to sell, so I went. Now's a great time to get into real estate sales. Let's do that. And I went to work for a Remax team because I didn't know any different. That eventually is where I met my future team partner. But at that point, there was nothing to sell.
REOs, for short sales.
So I did BPOs all day.
Okay.
And then I did cash for keys. And I was the person who knocked on the door and went, Bank of America is taking your house back. Please don't shoot me. I mean, I had guns pulled, all that stuff.
God.
And I'm going, hey, man, just let me walk in the house to just make sure it's the same. I'll be back in 30 days. If it is, we'll give you a check for $5,000. And I did that for 8 months. That was all there was to do, man. So when people say, hey, you don't know the struggle, man, my checks were $50, $60 for doing all
rough
kinds
stuff
of work, man. Yeah.
So that was your 2009 stretch. And so that second timing where I'm thinking, I'm like,
brutal.
Rough timing here. So that's number 2. But number 3 was like 2017. You decided to give up that next stretch and partner and grow that side, which you could probably argue both sides that was a great decision. But also, that was another stretch, that 2017 to 2021, even though COVID hit, that was an incredible stretch for teams and real estate partners. Like some would say that 2020 to 2021 stretch may have been the best
ever
real estate sales stretch we may ever see.
Well, there were mortgage rates that we'll never see again. So there was
rates
inventory.
Were low,
I mean, all that.
And pricing. Like, so there was 50 offers on a house. Every buyer that you touched would immediately go into contract. Like,
and if you weren't scared of COVID, you were the only one selling homes.
Correct.
So that was a good thing too. Yeah, it was actually quite just going off March of 2020 hits, within a week, I'm on Channel 5 about what do you think is going to happen in the real estate market. And the only thing I could say is it's going to be opportunity. Buy now. And the guy said, no, and the market's probably going to crash. I went,
There's no inventory.
If you're not scared and you can get into a house, you will be the only person offering on the house. Now's your opportunity. And it proved to be pretty correct.
No, I got really lucky. We talk about it with Pete all the time. I bought one of my big primaries that I was going to do a big flip for in 2018. The end of 2017, 2018, and I got still on it. Big giant house, $500,000 in Gilbert, and it's like you think about that and you're like, oh no, there's not even hardly 3-bedroom, tiny, small 3-2s in Gilbert for $500,000 now. That stretch pushed us so significantly down there, and so. But the big thing that I take away from it is you were like always 3 or 4 years ahead of what was coming.
I'm always trying to be
there. You were already ahead, but it was like. It's like it makes me think of fantasy football when you pick the rookie, but it's like 1 year before they break out. You're like, this is going to be the guy.
Can I keep him? I need to keep him.
Why am I not in keeper leagues? Like, what am I doing? And so it's like it's funny because you're always like right there. And so that kind of brings me to a lot of the stuff we've talked about. Right? Is like you did that team acquisition merger concept. What I would argue was like 3 to 4 years before it might become a necessity. It might be the thing of the future of where we're heading now. So tell me a little bit about that. I'd love to know, like, why did that conversation maybe come up in your mind as a team leader of like, were you trying to get ahead of it? Was it out of necessity or was it out of growth? Like, what was?
I wish I had a creative, super cool answer. The truth is, I got divorced.
Okay.
And I was paying significant money into I was a partnership, and we were spending 6 figures a year in marketing and CRMs and everything to keep this team going. And when it was going really well, it was still a profitable business for both of us.
Yeah.
But I no longer had that extra money that I could just rely on. And for the most part, I've been. I do maybe 5 transactions a year, if that anymore, but I've been out of production since really 2017, where I've been, all right, I'll do a couple deals here, help some friends, that kind of stuff. But I'm not a big fan of production. I love coaching and I love mentoring.
Business,
and I love, like you said, I love to look at things and go, oh, so Zillow's buying homes. How do I get ahead of that?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a new title company that's coming into town. How do I get ahead of that?
Or part of that.
How do I get in place with that to make my next move, right? Whatever that ends up being. When I went through the divorce and I didn't have that money, the idea was, okay, I don't have it to put into marketing. I don't have it to put into coaching or systems. How do I find that?
Yeah.
And I've always been a huge believer in whatever your weakness is, hire to it.
Yeah.
Right. If I can't do it well, go get it. So we were good. I was great in coaching. I was great in recruiting, and I was great in mentoring. And I understood the business side of
that was your strength.
That was me.
Yeah.
Like I could get agents.
Oh yeah.
And my partner was great at ops. So they needed an ops manager, and now he is all ops on all their team, basically second in charge of the whole company. But they need an ops guy. I happen to be kind of the throw-in guy, but then it worked because Zillow needed an evaluation
guy.
Kind
your scapegoat growth phase.
Right. It was like, all right, I can still run the team, but this valuation thing's cool, and I can be like the forefront of the guy, and they're going to fly me to Zillow, and I'm going to teach Zillow how to comp properties, like the executive team.
Yeah.
So doing that kind of stuff, again, I've been in rooms that I've no business ever having been in, but being willing to jump is how it got me there.
And you got to see behind that curtain on so many different things.
On a ton, yeah.
So a couple things stood out there. You said keep the team afloat. And it makes me wonder, because I've had a lot of conversation with team leaders, and I know you've had a conversation with tons of team leaders in our industry. How many of them do you think need to sell real estate just to keep the lights on for their team?
I would.
What percent?
96, 97.
96% of teams.
Yeah.
So you would say 96% of teams in our marketplace have to sell houses themselves.
Yeah, if you're running a team that's less than 10, 15, I always think 10, 15, 20 could be a breaking point. And I've always been a believer that a P&L kind of leads to your next hire.
Yeah.
Like at what point does my P&L go, I can hire another person, I can pay them 60, 70,000, I can give them a point or whatever that is on the transaction. So understanding that, but most people never get there because they don't have the systems, they don't have the processes. So all they know is real estate.
Yeah.
And they really don't know real estate leadership. And quite frankly, Keith, most teams start because you and I are good at real estate, and we met a couple people who
might as well
aren't.
start a team.
And let's just make this. Let's
call
take
a split off.
Let's call it KP Elite, and we'll
Yeah.
just make a team.
Yeah.
And then they think that that's going to work. And then 2 years later, I meet them again, and they go, "Hey, I'm still in the same spot." And the answer is always,
I'm actually making less money.
Yeah.
Is usually
because my overhead's gotten worse.
Correct.
Yeah, and I'm losing agents. That
And you're not
always
doing as
happens.
many deals.
Why aren't they working as hard as I want them to? Why aren't they dialing? Why aren't they don't never use my CRM? All those things are consistent. That's always the same thing. And I don't believe in real estate there are very many leaders.
No.
I believe there's a lot of managers. And I believe that there are a ton of team owners who are team managers.
And I wouldn't even probably go that far. They're like really good agents on their team.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like that same conversation Pete and I with the 4 quadrants of wealth when you talk about it, and Robert Kiyosaki, and talking about you're technically not even an owner.
Right.
If you run a doctor office and you're the only doctor in the doctor's office, are you really even an owner of that company,
Right.
or are you just self-employed? Because before you become truly a business owner and an investor in what you're doing, you can't be the guy that's doing all the work. And so how many teams do we see where they're still the hub? Like, if they leave, does the business die?
Yeah, I would encourage you for using books. Maxwell's five levels of leadership is the first level is you're a manager because your name tag says so.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's and I have to answer to you because you're my manager. And I think that's what most team owners get stuck in. They get stuck in, you know what, I can really only do this if I get a listing presentation, go with me, I'll show you how to do it. If I get a buyer presentation, go with me, I'll show you how to do it, or open house. But if they don't get one, how do you learn? Right?
Yeah.
They don't have that built. Or they go, well, watch this video on YouTube University and we'll show you how to do something. So they just never are able to invest the money it takes to make it, that they get out of it and they become a leader. Or they really, for the most part, that 96, 97%, those guys just tread water. They may make their money, but the thing that they always miss is, hey, I sold 40 homes and I made $250,000. Yeah, but what'd you spend?
Yeah. What was your actual net profit
and
on
if
that
you
line?
could get one person to run these 6 people to make you an extra couple percentage, what's that worth to you? Is that and by the way, how's family life? How is your no vacations for 5 years?
Probably worse.
I mean, we can't all be Pete that just travels all the
seriously,
time.
just leaves.
Unbelievable.
For months out of a time.
Never see the
Leaves
guy.
the worst summer month ever to go to the beach and just hang out. Apparently, yeah.
Yeah, it's good to be the king.
Leave me.
It's
Yeah.
good to be the king.
So, and it's interesting, and so I think I take from that is, what do you like advice wise? Like, you're a coach, you're talking to these leaders all the time, right? You're coaching them, saying, hey, where do you want to go to your next level? What would be your advice for these people in that spot? Like, do you suggest pull the plug, go back? Like, is it more profitable for them to do that potentially? Or do they, if they love the leadership side, do they merge like you did? Or like, what does that look like for them?
Yeah, let's start a little granular on that. When I was coaching for Ferry and with my coaching system, I would always talk to people and go, hey, go home and look your kid in the eye and say, listen, I didn't spend time with you today because I was trying to show someone how to do a buyer's advisory.
Or how to write this contract.
Right? Like, go look your kid in the eye and go, hey, we can't go to Disneyland because I have to do 3 deals to keep us going. Like, that's super hard. And I always believe kids are the best accountability partners you can have. They will cheer you on.
What are you doing
and
it for?
tell you you're a clown if you're being one. So I think what I run into on every single day I talk to team owners, that's what I do, is they kind of hit this line that you go, either you're going to have systems and processes, odds are you don't. And if you don't, evaluate the idea of maybe merging with another team if they're good at that.
Yeah.
Right? If they have processes and plans and you're not, but you're really good at the buyer presentation or really good at listing presentations, meet with someone and go, hey, I'm good at this. Can it fill the void that maybe you're not so good at? I'm really good at leading. What would it look like to you if I brought my team over, my 5 agents, and I grew that to 15? Could I be accommodated financially while you take off all the liability and the expenses and the overhead, right? So that happens a lot. And I think if you ask the guys over at KW right now, 8% of the country has a teamerage, and they're talking by the end of 2024, 40%. A teamerage is a team that's acting as a brokerage. So the KP brokerage in theory, right?
Yeah.
So that team, I can now go get teams and I can now bring in teams because why? I own the brokerage. So I think that is also in play, right? Do you want to go start your own brokerage and recruit teams? Or do you want to be the team that's recruited? And my experience is if I'm being recruited because I was on that side is I don't want to lose. My brand is my baby.
It's the ego.
It's what has fed my ego, and it's been on the signs everywhere, and it's on my business cards that cost me 6 cents. Like all these things that I think that are important.
Yeah.
How can I negotiate to keep that? And if I can't, how do I negotiate giving that up? And what can I get back in return?
Yeah, I think that's the big gut check that we've talked about a lot is, man, if you just leave the ego at the door sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, what is it worth it to you? Like, why are you in this business in the first place? Is it not to make money? Is it not to have the freedom to spend more time with your kids?
Yep.
And I think I love that because I, wake up every day and have to decide, like, why am I doing this? Why am I going to take on this next task or this next venture or this next business? Is it going to give my family more time or more opportunity or more, security in what we're doing? And if it's not one of those things, then why would I do it? Why would I continue to extend myself and exert? And so you think about that, and the numbers that I've ran and looked at, if you can reduce a team's expenses by 70% and increase their profitability by 40%,
Right.
that's like a 110% swing of opportunity there.
Right.
And all that time comes back. And I think that's the biggest thing is, especially if you're a team of 5, 10 to 15, like if you're in that range of like 100 transactions a year, there's so much scalability there that you're doing you're wearing 17 hats, where teams that are doing it at a high level, there's a few of us out there where we have a staff of 10 plus that are all doing all the hats.
They do it all for
that
you.
You're doing by yourself right now. And so like to put that into reference of like, yeah, you can get there, but you have to understand that you're going to need to hire these 8 people over the next 5 years of your career running this team before you'll ever get to a place where the time comes back.
If I'm making $250,000 and I have a team of 10 agents, and the $250,000 is 225 of it is my own transactions, right? And I'm still giving a percentage of that. If I'm a team owner, I'm giving something up to the brokerage, right? So is that and my overhead with CRMs and every team owner goes, I have to buy leads because they think that they don't have value, or I've got to generate this, or everybody's going to leave, and all that is costing you. That 250 is now 175, 150. If you merge with someone, your 225 that you were still doing, you may get to keep almost all of that if you negotiate it right. And I don't have another 50 or 60 of expenses going out the door.
And your team will probably grow.
And everybody gets better. And I've used this analogy a lot, Keith, is what happens to KP Elite if Keith wakes up tomorrow and has real estate amnesia and he doesn't know how to do anything in real estate? Well, the team keeps going.
Yeah, it'd probably still grow.
It actually continues to make Keith's family money.
Yeah.
Because even though he doesn't remember how to do real estate, there's still income.
Yeah.
Whereas if I have a team of 10, and this happens in every meeting I'm in, and the question is, well, what happens to your team if you forget how to do real estate tomorrow? Or God forbid, maybe a pandemic shows up and you can't work for 6 months.
Or you like for whatever reason, if you didn't want to sell anymore.
I'm out.
Like I'm done selling.
All 10 of those people are on their own.
They're gone.
And if you can build in the infrastructure to go, okay, if I go somewhere and I mix, and yes, it took a little ego, but I actually made more money. My team prospered better. I have more systems. I have more processes. And if I forget, or maybe I want to retire and I want to move off this business, well, I can still leave a legacy for the people that were with me.
Yeah.
And when we merged our team, the 5 agents, I'm telling you, all 5 of those are half percenters now. They are all making significant money. One is huge at Zillow. One owns their own team. One is a huge flipper. One is a coach. Like all of those people have done their own thing, and they wouldn't have done that with my team and me not having money because of a divorce.
Yeah, they'd still be stuck in that, or joining
they'd
another
be gone.
team, or doing something. Yeah,
and they would have bounced and bounced and bounced.
So those listeners, guys, like those of you guys that are out there are a part of that system or have thought about that, I'm 100% open to those conversations at any point in time. Reach out to me. I'm here to just give an evaluation. So is Lance, and he'll dive into your business and what that looks like. Like our goal is to help the industry get better. Not leave us all, like I think this is the biggest, is that we're all in isolation paying for the same stuff. Why is there 100 different teams paying the same amount of money for a CRM as each other? Like think about that cost consolidation right there. It shouldn't be like that. Like we shouldn't have 100 different TCs when a TC department could run it all, right? And like I start to think of that expense consolidation that can happen. And that's where those profit margins expand and leaders coming together to really excel. So I appreciate that insight, but I want to switch gears here a little bit. Because you just spoke at a conference, heard good things about it.
I did.
Where you talked about what could be,
Yeah.
like the what if.
Yeah.
And you said it ran an hour and a half longer than your allotted time of actual content.
Yeah, we were supposed to. I was booked for 2 hours. I was the keynote with a lot of the leaders in the state of Arizona. Went 2.5 hours. I only had about an hour and 15 of content, and then it just kept going with Q&A.
Wow.
It really was, the subject was what if? What if something happens? And it was more of, well, what if this happens? Oh, by the way, this is how it's happening.
Yeah.
Oh, but and none of it is seeing behind the scenes or some secret message I got from somebody. It was just doing some diligence and looking at what is being told to everybody,
Yeah.
whether it's in public earnings, whether it's in press releases, whether it is in Inman or some kind of news drop. It's all kind of tagged together. And in the state of Arizona, which I know most of this podcast is, we have 15 counties and we have 14 associations and 10 MLSs. Like, that's not advantageous to the agent, and it surely isn't advantageous to the client.
No, it's tough. It's like, we're licensed in Arizona. Not
But if you
in a
want to go
market.
show a house in Flagstaff,
You can't.
You can't unless you join their club. But your client can see the house on Zillow, right? You can't open it on an MLS because you don't have keys to the lockbox.
Tucson's an hour and 45-minute drive for some people here
Right.
in the Phoenix Valley.
And why are we not consolidating for the consumer and for the agents? And it was more of, hey, these things are kind of coming, and what if they happen? And if they do, the small surrounding areas of Phoenix, outside of Phoenix, are probably in all likelihood going to get picked off. And it's going to be struggle. It's going to be a struggle for them. And and what people don't realize is those small markets very much rely on what's called secondary members. A secondary member is, I don't live in Payson, I live in Scottsdale, but I'm a member of Payson.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden all those secondaries pull out for whatever reason, and all the agents that are in Scottsdale or Phoenix pull out of Flagstaff or Payson or Prescott,
They're toast.
What happens to the revenue in those associations, and what happens to the memberships?
It's consolidated.
It's in trouble.
Yeah.
And that's what it primarily was.
So tell me, what do you think your biggest, I guess, mic drop what if conversation was? Like, that you had the most questions on, that created the most buzz, that you were just like, oh, I didn't expect 12 of these questions back to back.
Yeah, it was actually the one I didn't know, I knew the least about.
Really?
Yeah, the question that I asked, and when they said, I had about a 30, the CEO of Arizona Association, a guy named Scott Drucker, used to be lead counsel for the ADRE. So everybody knows Scott, one of the best people in our business, really cares about our industry and really wants everybody to win. And he was the one who kind of asked me to do it. And I turned into, okay, as I prepare for this, what are things out there that I don't know about that I can go, wow, this is kind of a mic drop moment.
Yeah.
And you have the one that really hit me that changes. The question is, and people don't realize this, if large brokerages in the state of Arizona or any state decided we're no longer going to list our properties on MLS or on an IDX feed,
It'll just be private.
if we decide to just bring that in-house and not expose it to the market, but maybe expose it to maybe $1 billion entity like CoStar or Zillow or Homes.com is coming up fast.
Yeah.
Zillow's retreating just a little bit in terms of searches if you look at the data. And what happens if that happens? You would make basically an MLS invalid. If an MLS has any less than 60% of the market, it becomes an invalid MLS.
Yeah. I think the quickest one that I just rush to think about is airlines. We've seen it, and I don't know if you've kind of like painted that same, like those lines and those same things, but probably, well, I don't even know when it happened. I'd have to do some digging, but probably like 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember when that switch happened, but you used to go to Google and you could type in Google flights, and every single carrier would be on there. And I could see all the rates and compare everything.
No chance.
Southwest has its own consolidated flight channel. Allegiant has its own consolidated flight channel. And those are just two of the ones that we have here in Arizona that we use frequently. But Southwest did what we're talking about. They said, screw it. We're not IDXing. If you want to see Southwest flights, because we know we have that poll, we're posting our flights on our box. And that's it. Those are our listings. You can't see them from anything else, right? Yeah. They're not going to Expedia. They're not going to those, but the other carriers are still. So that 60% marketplace is there. And I'm curious, it's the same concept. It's like, when does Delta pull out and American and all these airlines just say, no. If you want our flights, you got to come to our website, and we want to contain the traffic. And Southwest is the only one, that just took that major leap. But what about that in the real estate industry? That same concept of, okay, Zillow, pull back, or Open Door, pull completely off, and or Keller Williams, and or Reology, and like some of these entities. Like, what was that feedback? What was it? More fear? Was it more anxiety?
Well, the big break on it, and I didn't even know they existed, but in the East primarily, there's a largest private brokerage in the country is a company called Howard Hanna. Howard Hanna has 500 locations. They're in 13 states with 15,000 agents. They are significant, and they're privately held. I did a little research on them, and they actually went, the word isn't exclusive, but they called it exclusive in 2013 with Zillow. Well, Zillow was an infant in 2013, right? They were just still getting going. Well, an announcement comes up about a month and a half ago that Zillow is no longer doing Premier Agent or Zillow Flex in the Charlotte-Durham market. That ends at the end of July, which is in what, 3 days?
A couple days.
And they're going to take that and give all of those leads to, quote, their preferred partners. To be easier for the consumer and to be stronger to work with mortgage.
Yeah, they have less, and think of it in the business operations, they have less operational things to worry about. They got one.
We'll work with 1, 2, 3, whatever that is. So, okay, that happens, and I still don't know anything about Howard Hanna. An announcement comes out in Inman. Howard Hanna has decided in Northeast Ohio to pull all of their listings off IDX. And if people are listening, if they don't understand that, if you have a search that is searchmyphoenixhomes.com,
anything,
and I am Howard Hanna, my listing does not hit your account. It'll hit MLS, and what they announced is they're going to go through MLS and Zillow only. So now if your client that's searchphoenixhomes.com decides to go look for a property on your website, they will not see it, but they'll see it on Zillow. And the second they see it on Zillow and they click on it, guess who they get led to? Me, not you as your client.
I think the other piece is like those of you guys that are still paying hundreds and thousands of dollars on lead advertising for pay-per-clicks through Bing and Yahoo and Google and these sites to advertise your website that's based off of IDX.
That's gone.
If you don't have all the listings attached to you and your client finds out that they're like, hey, well, I'm sorry, you didn't send me this house. I found this on Zillow and it didn't pop up for me on you. Like your search didn't have this. What the heck's going on? Why can't I see all the houses?
Or worse, they call and go, hey, Keith, I'd like to look at 123 Flower Street. And you go, where is it? And you have to go, guess what? You probably have to go to Zillow yourself.
To go find it. And you're like, it must be a for sale by owner.
Right.
But it's not.
It's not. So what the sneaky part about it is, why do that in Northeast Ohio? Because quite frankly, that market is something, it's Cleveland. That market is something that no one really is going to pay attention to. And they're testing the legalities of it is what they're doing.
What's that market share percentage that they have there?
I don't know in Cleveland, to be honest. I don't know that.
But probably at least.
Right, but it's probably decent. I mean, but the Cleveland market is in no doubt distressed, or depressed is probably a better one. But the sneaky link to it that no one notices is who's the number one brokerage in Durham, Charlotte? They are. Howard Hanna's the number one broker. So coincidentally, they're no longer doing any real estate with Zillow saying, we're pulling everything away from you and we're going to give it to our preferred partners. Well, that's exactly who their preferred partner is in Charlotte. They're just not saying that. And if they can prove that it's legal in Cleveland, and the reality of it is it's legal because
why wouldn't it be? You can advertise your stuff.
I don't have to put it on your page.
Now, if you belong, I know that you've signed agreements and you have restrictions of it. If you belong to associations or push that stuff with the MLS, like if you sign up with it, they have those restrictions there, but they don't have to.
But what happens if all of a sudden all that Zillow business runs through Howard Hanna in Charlotte? And then Zillow says, you know what, we don't want to run it through MLS. That Charlotte MLS gets to 50, 60, 70% like availability. They become invalid. Then who owns the MLS? Howard Hanna?
No one.
Howard Hanna could theoretically own an MLS.
But it would just not be called that.
Right. They would just go howardhannahomes.com. And all you want to list the home, you're going to do it through us and you're going to compensate us now. So the game is changing and it's changing in those steps. And to bring it back to what we're talking about with the teams is if you don't figure out a way to consolidate what we're trying to do in the state of Arizona, if you don't figure out a way to consolidate and get ahead of it and go, okay, I can't afford to lead gen a group that might no longer be able to lead gen, right?
Yeah.
I'm paying into something that may become invalid at some point.
Yeah.
And if anybody ever reads the earnings reports from Q1 of Zillow, I would encourage you. They tell you where they're going.
Yeah.
They tell you the next 3 cities, and one of them may be someone that we all know. So
No, there's no way, right? There's no way it could be Greater Phoenix.
They've
area.
launched here before. I don't know why they would go. Why they would.
We're
ever
not one of
come
their
back.
first early test markets
Right.
on things, are we?
So I had better get together, or the little ones are going to be picked off, and that's at the association level, and that's at the team level. That just. I'm not Chicken Little, I assure you. I am not telling you something that I'm making up. I'm telling you it's being tested nationwide.
Go read the article.
Read the articles. Just research Howard Hanna. You'll learn anything you need to about him.
So what's crazy as well is you start to think about that consolidation and that pullback and what that looks like. And you make a really valid point. It's you hear all the time, even in stocks and things like that, like sell high, buy low. Like don't wait so long that it just depletes your opportunity to do something. Does the question impose like, make the move now while you have leverage. Like your agents are worth something, your lead generation, your systems, whatever you have is worth something. In 3 years from now, it might be, like you said, irrelevant. It won't, like we won't need to buy anything because you have nothing to sell.
Right.
Right. And so this is the time where you can actually get ahead of a lot of these things and people can come together and try and make a push for that. Right. And so that's a big piece of it. The other piece or wing of this is, so if Zillow starts to take market share and they start to pull in and play, we've already seen
or
Insight
CoStar
or anything like that. You start to see those referral fees, which is just eaten out of the team, team split percentage. They've just kind of narrowed it in. Used to be in 2013, Google pay-per-click ads, like those leads were money. 50-50. There was no referral fee on top. It made sense back then. And there was no lead consolidators. Like they just weren't. Now that they're starting to pull in and now they're starting to move this trend of that 35-40% that a team would normally make is now going to the lead consolidators.
Yeah.
What happens when they do gain market share and Zillow said, you know what, 35% is not enough?
Oh, they're going to change that.
Well, they've already talked about, or I think they're already testing it in one of the markets. I can't remember which one it is, but I think they've already pushed it to 40%. And it's not changing a lot, right? Like, what are you going to do? Complain and keep taking the leads? Like, at what point is that line drawn?
What they've talked about, Keith, a lot is their super app. And the super app is, if you would like to buy a house, it's basically all in one app. One-stop shop. Do you need a lender? Here it is. Do you need a
mortgage attached?
Do you need an agent?
Process?
And if you watch their advertising, if you're driving around Phoenix, Zillow Home Mortgage is everywhere.
Yeah.
On billboards
ZHL.
everywhere. You're getting advertisements through them. Hey, we have agents that will work with you. That's the latest advertising. And again, I'm not disparaging. Let's be clear. I'm not disparaging. They're doing it the right way.
Yeah, they're going at it head on.
And they're doing it the way they do things.
They're pushing it.
Yeah, they're aggressive and they're going, listen, we're here for the consumer. All you MLSs are here for the agents. Well, the agents aren't the ones who spend the money. I could take the commission based on the consumer to take that 35%.
Yeah.
And that's the money that is a $900 billion industry is real estate commissions. So if I could take that and get into it by 10%, 35%, and I can control 1% of it with 35%, it's a significant revenue generator, right?
Yeah, 100%. And so, you just jogged something in my memory, and I cannot remember if it's 100% true, so hold me to it. But did Zillow's founder and the ownership of Zillow, did they not start Expedia?
Spencer Raskoff and that group did, yeah. Expedia and Grubhub.
So think about that. If you want to learn your lesson from past, like everything, like Pete and I, we have a funny saying. It's history never repeats itself, but it often rhymes. Like that's the concept we do a lot of things on. It's like, hey, if we're looking ahead, we're looking for the future. History, it's going to happen again. It's just not going to be the exact same way. It's not going to look. It's not going to show its face in the same way, but it's going to be similar. It's going to rhyme. And so, what did Expedia do to the travel industry?
Right. And
there were travel agents on every corner.
Unless you're a super niche travel agent now, you're in trouble.
You're not doing it. Concierge is irrelevant.
Who's the most recent partner with Grubhub? Domino's went for 20 years of 30 minutes or less. We're the first ones to do it. Now they're going to go through Grubhub. They just announced that a week or two ago.
Why would they take on all that overhead and risk if they can just already outsource it to a company that's doing it anyways?
And Grubhub's going to pay me a penny or on the dollar, but I'll take it.
I get paid to send it through them instead of try and make money on the back end. Like, incredible.
Yeah.
And so you think about that. Expedia did it to the travel agent. If Zillow is the head leading charge and this is their big mission, like this is their big focus, do you see line of sight? Like, I guess that leads me into one of my final questions is what does agency look like in 5 years? Like, what is a real estate agent doing? I'm looking at it like, okay, Expedia's, we're dealing with the same monster, the same awesome business leader in Zillow. Like, they're smart. They know how to attack a marketplace. They've done it before. They're not their first rodeo.
Yeah, I don't think it's a situation where we're all travel agents and now we're working at Fry's, right? I don't think it's to that.
Okay.
I do think that you're in a spot that MLS has probably become a little less valid.
Okay.
I do believe that you're in a spot that you're about in October. The first of the lawsuit starts, and that is affecting buyer broker commissions.
Yep.
And you may be in a spot. In all likelihood, it may not look to this extreme, but there's a likelihood that the buyer is now compensated by the buyer's agent is now compensated by the buyer. That's going to affect. That's going to affect
and affordability,
debt to income. It's going to affect loan situations. It's going to affect
closing costs, all of it.
All of that's coming in. And are they going to pay you 3%? Absolutely not.
They can't afford it.
Nope.
The amount of concessions you would need just to get your own covered costs. Right. So now concessions are to get paid, not to get and sellers are going to know that.
So leads are starting to shrink. The consumer is starting to pull back and say, we don't really like this interaction that has been working for you for 50 or 60 years, Mr. Agent.
Yeah.
We're not big fans of it. We don't like the fact, by the way, we're going to sue you in a class action lawsuit that says we don't want to pay you to join your club because you're in a club.
Yeah.
Right? You guys, you agents work together and in the MLS club, so I have to pay you so I could just be a member of the club for a 30-day run.
Yeah.
How's that make sense to me? So if that shrinks and now buyer broker agreements become enforceable, they become mandatory. Some states Michigan just made the buyer broker mandatory. If that happens, and your inventory is shrinking and your leads are shrinking, you had better consolidate. And if you don't consolidate, you had better become really, really niched. Meaning you had better be good at wholesale. You had better be crazy good at maybe seniors. You maybe be real senior living, luxury. That $3 million, $4 million should be.
They're going to pay for an experience.
Right?
They're not. I don't think they're in this combo at all.
And are you really niche with probate or attorneys or divorce, or are you really, really good at the niche products? And if you're not, you better partner with someone who is.
Yeah.
And if they have an account to Zillow, and you have a Premier Agent or a Flex account in Zillow, the question back to what if is what happens if they pull it?
Yeah, I look at it as if you have to pay an agent to represent you on the buy side and they make it easy, like new builds, to just walk in the door and sign a contract, or Zillow makes it easy through AI tech and some of the other stuff coming out to just use the app and navigate through the system with one of their Premier agents that are attached to the listing side.
That they get 35% from. That if it's a small brokerage and that listing doesn't leave the buyer side, so that brokerage or team keeps it all in the house.
Yeah.
They keep it in the house.
What do you do as a consumer? Like, I mean, think about it. You buy a $500,000 house. Are you going to pay a buyer's agent $15,000?
No. You're going to pay them a flat rate of $2,500 if they're lucky.
If they're lucky.
Uh-huh.
Because we've talked about it all the time that real estate agents have been getting paid too much down the stretch. And I would argue that entirely.
Absolutely.
And I know it's coming. As a consumer, I know it's a problem if I'm looking at a way of for sale by owning my own house as an agent. In fact, majority of the agents do that because they realize that 3% give out to a buyer to do next to nothing when it's in a marketplace like that. It's crazy and it's messed up. But we're talking about the same conversation. If I needed to sell my house in a marketplace like this, where inventory's down, and I posted it on Zillow, I'm probably selling my house if I price it correctly.
Well, you and Pete have your sayings, and when I talk about consistently, and I even mentioned in that room, is the solutions of yesterday are the problems today.
Yeah.
So we had solutions in 2005 and 6 to talk about even my history. Like the market got crazy. No one was worried about paying the commissions. Then the market depleted and all you had to do was go skin and bones, cash for keys. I'm doing
Yeah.
BPOs. Now it hits 2011, 12, and we're back running crazy. No one's worried about commissions. But now you're in a situation where inventory's down, no one can get rates to work for them, and now I've got to pay you as well as a buyer broker. That's a challenge. And that solution of what was working isn't going to work anymore. It has to be changed. Consolidation and partnerships have to exist when before the solution of let's start our own team and do our own thing is no longer legitimate or even fact-based, because consolidation is going to happen.
Yeah.
And if the lawsuits go through, and it's funny, when I talked the other day in the room, is I think 95% of realtors in the country have no idea that these lawsuits exist.
And the CFPB on top of it.
And the 5% who do know all think it's going to be okay
They're
because,
like,
hey,
it's always been all right.
Our super PAC is great at the NAR. We're going to fight. No. It's gone this far. And you're probably going to have some consolidation somewhere that you're going to have to say, hey, I'm a broker. I'm representing you as the buyer. Pay me $2,500 and I'll get this done for you.
I think at the end of the day, you better just be really good.
But on the good side, as a listing agent, I can now go to the seller and go, here's what's great. You don't have to pay me 6% because we don't have to pay them anymore. So you can pay me 4%.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a great deal for you.
Yeah, until that still consolidates, they'll be even lower.
The lawsuit in St. Louis is against sellers.
Yeah.
Is against listing agents. So if that happens, so you got a lot of things happening. When I finished my conversation the other day, I said, I don't know how many people of you are here are people of faith. It means nothing to you, but you'll get the analogy. It's about to rain for 40 days and 40 nights, and you better build a boat.
Yeah.
And you better get 2 of everything on that boat, or you're going to drown. And that is, when you say the future, I don't think we're 5 years out. I don't think we're 3 years out. I think you're 2 or 3 years away from this has happened, this has happened, this has happened. What if? And I mean, there's things in that conversations of the what if that you and I haven't even talked about.
Oh, I know.
That what if that happens?
Yeah, we're not even thinking about that. Like,
what if super sells? What if that happens and you no longer have access, and every time you have access, you have to go through CoStar or you have to go through Zillow? What happens then?
Yeah.
What happens if showing time goes, yeah, we're going to cut you guys off?
Or just cut it all off entirely and just make everything automated and logged in like Open Door did for that stretch.
You're going to use our app.
Oh, man.
Right?
I would say if you're going to play yes or no, do commissions go flat in the next 3 years?
I don't think that's a definite either way. I think that again, if I'm a person who's been in the business 20 years and I have a book of 500 people that have bought and sold, I think they're still going to use me.
Okay.
Right? I'm still going to call Domino's because I know that that's what I've always done.
Yeah.
I don't even know that they're partners with Grubhub until I go on Grubhub.
Yeah.
Right? So there's things that I don't know. But if I'm an agent that's 3 years, 5 years, and I was killing it in 2020 and 2021, I assure you I'm struggling right now.
And what about the agents joining right now?
Well, your first time in the history of NAR, they went from 1.5 budgeted to 1.3 budgeted and then increased rates on the 1.3 to make up for the difference. Yeah. And they said, we need to get that money because we're fighting for you in lawsuits.
I'm still telling them to, hey, cut it in half and quadruple the fees and let's go to
We've
town.
had that conversation.
We've had that
I don't know that's going to go around. I don't.
Guys, literally.
It's out of my pay range.
Increase fees 10x and let's fix this industry real quick. We'll just put fuel on the fire and just let it roll.
I actually think it is, if you want I talked about a mic drop. This was my suggestion, is if it were me in the state of Arizona, right now, let's go back. You have a product called Neighborly. Neighborly is generated by the Southern California MLS and the Northern Florida MLS. Combined, there's 200,000 agents in there. Yeah. So they account for what, 15% of registered realtors.
Yeah.
They have combined and they have a public-facing MLS. Other states are joining their group. In the state of Arizona, I don't think you need to do that. What I would think would help the consumer and help agents is if you took all the MLSs in the state of Arizona and you had one. It doesn't mean that we have to shut down Flagstaff.
No.
All we have to do is go, Flagstaff, share your data with this source, and this source is we're going to be findarizonahomes.com.
Yeah.
Now when Keith has a listing, how about this? If Keith has a listing and a consumer hits and they like that house, that lead goes to Pete. I mean, it goes to Keith, right?
Yeah.
And so you're listing your lead, which is the
premise behind it all.
The premise behind homes.com and CoStar is you're listing your lead. That's why they're improving, right?
Because right now, that's not Zillow's mantra.
It's not. It's our listing, our lead to our referral, right? So,
and it's not, sometimes not even their listing. It's your listing, my lead,
right?
My referral.
And in the room, the question was asked: what about the lady, the 97-year-old lady in Sedona who needs to sell her house? What about the agent that comes up from Scottsdale to do that? And it was a great question, and she was the CEO of Sedona. And the answer was, I'm glad you said that, for two reasons. If I'm an agent from Scottsdale and I'm representing someone in Sedona, and I don't get someone from Sedona to help me with that, I'm violating an ethics violation. I have an ethics violation.
Because you don't know the market like someone else in Sedona.
If I get them in trouble because I don't know water rights, or I don't know historic value, or I don't know land value, I'm just looking for the percentage.
That's an agency issue.
I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
But it's not my problem. And I said in the room, I can't fix lazy and I can't fix stupid.
Yep.
But I can fix a lot of other things. But more importantly, ask that 97-year-old woman who has her listing, who the second you check IDX hits all the Sedona agents. It also immediately hits Zillow. Now, the consumer that's in Scottsdale sees it on Zillow and has to go through their agent, I'd like to go see this house. That agent now has to go, wait, let me join the group, let me find it, let me give you there. The lady who's 97 years old, ask her if she would like every agent in the state of Arizona to see it, or just the 25 or 50 agents in Sedona.
Oh, man.
What's best for the consumer? The best thing for the consumer is exposing it to the market.
Yeah.
Zillow's doing it already. Homes.com is doing it already. They already have your data. So what's best for the consumer is the question. And that sparked another level of conversation of going, hey, if you made a general public MLS, Southern California did it. They tested it in 2021. Check this out. They generated in 6 months $9.2 billion in sales and 30,000 leads for free that went to agents. If Joe Consumer hits I want to buy Arizona
because
Homes.com,
they made it private. Yeah.
If they hit that and that lead goes to that agent in that marketplace, or they don't have an agent and now I'm attaching them to an agent who knows that marketplace, even though they're coming from Sedona, that lead stays in your pocket and we give you that lead for free with no referrals.
It just makes listings.
Now I go get a big
Powerful.
sponsor. Now I go get a national sponsor, a Quicken or someone, and go, hey, you can be the exclusive advertiser on this site for $5 million a year. We're going to put you in front of 7 million buyers.
It's incredible.
So, and all that money, guys, goes to you. Doesn't go to Neighborly.
It goes to the listings. It goes to the agents.
It goes to the associations, and they can stay afloat.
Yep.
I mean, it's not crazy hard to think of it. It's just, are you willing to worry about the solutions of the past?
And willing to pull the plug on the things that matter.
Are you willing to consolidate as a team? And are you willing to consolidate as a marketplace? And if you don't, it's going to rain for 40 days, man.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I can tell you is, but figure it out.
That's crazy. Hey, Lance, I appreciate you joining with us. This is, oh, man. If you guys didn't listen to this full thing, you're missing out. And if you did, congrats to you, because you got some nuggets that I would say 99.9% of the industry has
no idea.
Yeah. No idea.
Yeah.
You are now in the top 0.1% of educated agents and industry leaders in our marketplace, guys. And it's not just Arizona. This is a national thing. This is a national issue. And the writing's on the wall. It's just a matter of time. So appreciate you guys. Guys, again, follow us. Send questions to questions@kpeliteaz.com. And you guys know where to find us at the KP Podcast. Appreciate the subscription. And we'll see you guys in a couple weeks.